You're listening to the Savoir Faire audio experience.
Are you ready? The bass be louder.
The Savoir Faire experience is your guide to everything that has to do with lifestyle. From dating, rides, style, and entertainment. All brought to you by the editor of Savoir Faire magazine, Robert White. Anything goes on this audio experience. So, let's go.
It's still the best.
Hi guys, welcome to the Savoir Faire audio experience, and thank you for listening and being an avid listener. Today we have an excellent interview planned for you. Someone that I just recently found her music, and I absolutely loved it, so I'm really glad that we had a chance to connect. Anna Sky is here with us today. How are you doing, Anna?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for finding some time to chat with us. We really appreciate that.
Oh my gosh, of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, not a problem. So, Anna, I want to learn all the behind the scenes stuff about you as an artist. I want to talk about music and just kind of maybe give some tidbits of like real life stuff to the people that might be listening, or, you know, even your fans or friends that might come chase this interview down and learn about you, right? So maybe you can start from the very beginning for us and just give us a little bit of your background, like where you grew up, where you went to school, maybe where you're from. Just give me some backstory before we start diving into the music topic.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm from Los Angeles. I've been here almost my whole life. And I went to school here. I went to Occidental College, actually, like out by Pasadena, and studied biology. So I've been working as a scientist since graduating.
Amazing.
And yeah, and that's kind of my backstory.
Wow.
I've always, yeah.
No, that's cool. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. There's something more. Go ahead.
No, you're good. Oh, just that, like I've always been singing, and that's been kind of like a secret passion of mine my whole life. But obviously I wasn't pursuing it professionally until pretty recently.
That's so cool. So you're a scientist.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
awesome. So scientist by day and songstress by night. I love it. Okay. This is very cool. What kind of science things are you focused on? Like, what are you studying or working on?
My background is biology, and I work in fertility right now. I actually just finished a program in San Diego to become certified in embryology. So I'm going to be doing like IVF and all kinds of, ART fertility stuff.
Oh, very interesting. So for all the like dummies in the world, break that down for me. What does that mean?
No, you're so funny. Basically, if a couple or anybody is looking to have a baby and is having some fertility issues, I'm going to be the person in the lab helping the doctor try to find the best way to make that happen. I'll also be doing egg freezing and embryo freezing. But even just, it's pretty crazy, but putting the sperm in the egg and making the embryo, I'm going to be the person in the lab doing that.
Whoa. Okay. So there's like some godlike qualities. So God may be a woman, and it may be Anna.
You didn't hear it from me, but
no, I said it. I'll take credit. Very cool. Okay, so then in the midst of like all of this studying that you're doing, and obviously life in general, you have this budding music career that's kind of started. So then think back to like your music career. When did it start? When was the first time you like wrote a lyric or sang a lyric? What was that?
Well, in a way, it's been for a long time, because I have been writing poetry since I was 14. So I guess you could say those were the first lyrics I was making, because we have adapted some of those into some of my songs. But basically, about a year ago is when this all really started coming to a head, and when I started working with my producer and recording.
Okay, cool. So the last year has been really aggressive, but you've been kind of dabbling with writing for a while.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I've been singing my whole life, like I said, but yeah, this all kind of happened by accident, honestly.
Okay, very cool. I mean, I love it. I think that music in general is something that you are born with. I don't think that musical talent is something you could go learn it, right? You probably could go learn to write, learn to play an instrument, learn to be a songwriter. Those things are probably things you can learn. But I think the natural kind of born talent is just something that people appreciate just a little bit more, knowing that this was your path, you were chosen for this, and now you are deep diving right into it, which is just super cool. And you have this um, very unique voice. Like that's one of the things that kind of led me to "Loving You Is Hard," this new single that you just released. Um, your vocal ability and like this kind of soothingness to your voice is very nice. Like, have you heard a lot of people talk about the uniqueness of your voice, or people telling you what's kind of happening there?
Oh, well, first of all, thank you. I appreciate that a lot. I think definitely more recently I've been hearing that. I think part of the reason why I didn't really tell anybody else in my life that I sang was because I noticed when I was younger that I sounded different from my peers when I would sing, and I used to think that that was a bad thing or something to be embarrassed of. And it's been a really beautiful realization, recently discovering that the things that made me different are actually the things that make me special, and kind of rephrasing my or reforming my paradigm with
Yeah.
regards to that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, and I can understand like the idea of listening to yourself sing, maybe even pre-recorded, like or something, and then hearing that back and then trying to compare that to maybe other artists
Yeah.
that are out there and like being a little bit hard on yourself until you finally realize that like your uniqueness and this little tone you have in your voice is exactly what people love about you. And then when you embrace that, I think that's when you get to kind of loosen up a little bit and become more of an artist and fall into your genre or your place in the industry, which is very cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like, when we're younger, we just all want to fit in and kind of be like everybody else. And I think that's one of the cool things about growing up is realizing that that's actually not the only path.
Yeah, I would say on that note that most things in life are probably the exact opposite. When we are young, all we want to do is fit in. We want to have the same clothes as the cool kids. We want to be athletic. We want to do all these different things that people go through, maybe through middle school, high school, when you really start recognizing that you're standing out a little bit. And when you become an adult, I think you realize 100% of the time that your talent is in being your very unique self and not blending in with everybody, being able to stand out a little bit and be on your own. Um, that's a very vulnerable place for a lot of people, but I think in music in general, that's exactly where you need to be, is kind of standing on your own, having your own uniqueness, not being like anybody else. And I think that's what makes people stand out and become fans of specific artists, or maybe different lyrics, things like that. Like it all has to be very unique.
Yeah, I think that that's exactly what kind of started this journey for me. Is just really randomly, my flight got delayed. I was in Dallas with my dad, and he had a friend there that had a whole sound system and stage and everything in his gym. So my dad was singing karaoke songs essentially, and he was kind of the only person in my life that knew that I sang still. And he's always like loved my music, but I kind of kept that part of myself private. And after being delayed 4 hours, um, I somehow got convinced to sing a song. And unbeknownst to me, my dad was recording me singing and playing piano. And he showed that recording to Diane Warren a couple months later. And she literally stopped him 20 seconds into the song and said, "Bill, I've been looking for a voice like this one for a song that I just wrote. Like, what is your daughter doing tomorrow?" And that's how that's my first time in the studio.
Wow. What a,
Yeah, it was
wow.
it
That's
was nuts.
insane. Yeah, that's a crazy, crazy story. Like, how does this possibly happen? Thank you, Dad. Like from me and the rest of
Yeah,
the world. Thank you, Dad, for recording that and putting her out there. That's so
I know.
cool.
I still can't believe, like, I wish I'd known I was being recorded, because like I looked crazy in that video. I'm like, I was gonna go on a plane. I'm like wearing. I just like, oh my gosh, it's so funny. But I mean, she heard something, and when Diane Warren hears something in your voice, that definitely made me take a second and look at it.
Absolutely. So how does your dad know Diane? Like, what's the story there? Are they old high school friends or something, or they work together?
Um, not quite. She's a patient of his, and her best friend is like a good friend of my aunt. So she's kind of connected to my family. But she was just in his office, and he just on a whim decided to play it for her. And I don't know what came over him to do that,
Oh,
but
I love
I
it
guess I'm
though.
really glad he did.
From one dad to another dad, I think that's the coolest thing ever, honestly. Like, that's such a cool thing. So props to him for pulling that string. I mean,
Oh,
I,
thanks.
I love that
He's
stuff.
he's my number one fan for
Oh,
real.
that's so cute. Okay, that's adorable. Okay, let's move on. Um, tell me about
Okay.
like your music taste in general. Like, which artists are you kind of attached to that you like? Give me some feedback there.
I think I really like artists that have a lot of soul in their songs, and I really appreciate when an artist is able to kind of dive deeper and go into subject matter that's a little bit below the surface level.
Yeah.
Um, so I think some artists that I've I've really been inspired by. A lot of them are older artists like Amy Winehouse, Edith Piaf, but Lana Del Rey is another really big inspiration for me. I mean, I love a ton of different artists, of course. Nessa Barrett is also super talented, but um, I think that songs are a really human way of connecting with each other, and I really
Mm-hmm.
appreciate when people use that art form to um, I don't know, add meaning to other people's lives and help them kind of digest their own experiences.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
been something that's really carried. Music has helped me through so many things. So I really appreciate artists that are able to do that for other people, and I hope to be able to emulate that.
Yeah, I would say music is 100% therapy. Like it needs to be officially um, like diagnosed as a tool for therapy, honestly, because there are so many different things. Like even for personal life, I'm sure you go through this stuff too. When I'm in the gym and I just want to like really hit it and work out, I'm probably listening to just like some pretty decent metal or something that's got some upbeat kind of beat to it because I want to be motivated. Like it's my motivation when I'm working, especially in my office on my desk or something, I want some very relaxed, kind of calm music, like a little bit of light background music. Um, but then what's happened kind of cool that's recent in my world is, and I've been in the music industry for a long time as well. Um, I moved to Nashville when I was like 16 and got wrapped up in country music for a while. And just like me and a guitarist type of story. And I had an artist that I was like really attached to, kind of admired. We had similar stories, even had a similar name. There was just a lot of things about this person. And just recently, like as an adult now, this person became easier to contact, right? And so I was able to reach out to them directly and do a Zoom meeting with them for like an hour. And we
Oh my
basically had
gosh.
we had like a breakdown conversation, and we talked about this, like music being like the tool that gets you through so many things. And I basically said, like, you wrote the soundtrack for my life, and like every song that this
Oh my
particular artist was
gosh.
writing, I had something going on in my life that matched up with what he was releasing every year, every 2 years or whatever. And so it was like kindled spirits with the music, not just the artist, but like the music. So being able to communicate with him and talk to him about that stuff was kind of a cool moment for me. We actually talked about writing together, which is super cool. But like that's kind of one of those things is like I do think that music hits you in different direction. And lyrically, I'm like you. I want substance. I want a storyline. I want to go someplace. I don't want very repetitive things like some pop artists have in their songs. I want to kind of feel something about this character and this song and things like that. So on that note, tell me
Yeah,
about
absolutely.
tell me about Loving You is Hard, and from your artist perspective, where this song comes from, how this kind of developed. Give me the breakdown on that.
Yeah, for sure. Um, well, and just to say, so it's out there. I mean, I think there's a place for everything in music, and obviously, like fun kind of surface level songs are serve serve their purpose, and I just think it's more interesting to kind of delve into other subject matter. So
Yeah.
for Loving You is Hard, um, it was kind of inspired by my experience in college of just kind of falling into repeated cycles of toxic relationships and chasing after people that didn't really care about me, and then kind of rejecting people that did care about me, maybe because I was afraid of that level of intimacy, or didn't know how to process that, and it felt more comfortable and familiar to have people that were playing games with me.
Mm-hmm.
Who really knows? But it's kind of capturing and speaking to that time in my life, and the awareness that it was kind of a two-way street as well. Like, it wasn't like the other person was the bad guy. Like, we both had a part in perpetuating this experience, and it's called Loving You Is Hard, but really I would say that it's not real love, what I'm talking about in the song. And
Yeah.
it's cool to be able to look back on that time in my life and understand it better, because when I was caught in the midst of it, I think it's really hard to break out of. And then once you do, you just see it all so much more clearly.
Yeah, I was looking through the lyrics of this because you have it on YouTube, right? The video, the official video is on YouTube, and the lyrics are in the video in the section below, the description section. So I was reading through some of this. It's very poetic, the way that you're talking about it, like being in poetry and writing. That's very poetic. So I'm reading through it. I'm like, oh, this. I mean, just without listening to the song, just the lyrics themselves. And that's kind of very cool. It's got kind of a nice, unique flow. But there are little lines that you drop in here that are just kind of like, this is just a toxic relationship where
Yeah,
you're
100%.
having so much fun with each other, but you also can't stand each other at the same time. Like, I can't remember. There's another song like "I Love to Hate" or "I Love to Hate You" or something like that. This kind of has the same, very similar kind of storyline to that. Like,
yeah, it's definitely of the same ilk.
yeah, like something very along those lines, which is very cool. There was a line here I was going to ask you about, like, so this, like, I'm not sure if this is the bridge or just a transition, but it says, "So lie, baby, tell me lies. I don't need to face reality tonight." Are these kind of like,
Yeah.
that's where it kind of triggers, right? Like, that's kind of the idea that, like, I don't care how toxic you are for me. I'm going to keep you around because this is kind of like, you just get comfortable in this
Yeah.
weird spot. Yeah.
Kind of that place of denial and shared delusion. Exactly.
Yeah.
Of like both of you knowing like this isn't really sustainable and this isn't probably healthy either, but it feels good in the moment. So just fuck it. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but
You're good here. I promise you're okay with me. Yeah.
okay.
No, I love it. The reeler for me, like when we're recording and putting out podcast episodes, I love that because that's what people really want to feel is like there's, when I write the article, that's going to be the nice clean version of like, oh, we interviewed Anna Sky and this is her new track and blah, blah, blah. But like the podcast is really supposed to be the behind the scenes. Like, guys, wait till you hear the rabbit holes we went down. Maybe you'll hear like this artist cuss, which is great. Like those things are completely okay with me because I want to have that little uniqueness to the show. Yeah, very cool. I try not to because I have to be the host and be all gentlemanly, like whatever. But like, you're welcome to let it loose, be comfortable.
Okay.
Yeah, very
Thank
cool.
you.
Yeah, not a problem. So besides this song, besides like "Loving You Is Hard," do you pull like a lot of your lyrics and some of the stuff that you write? Is this all from real life, or are people telling you stories? Are you seeing things like in movies or when you're walking down the street and you're just kind of pulling ideas from stuff? Where's the inspiration for just writing in general come from?
I would say it's 90% my real life and my experiences. But sometimes, I mean, that is something that I love, especially when I'm writing poetry as well, is stepping outside of myself and looking at the world through somebody else's eyes, or it could be somebody that I met years ago, but I still think about, and just trying to understand the human experience by putting myself into other human experiences, if that makes sense. And
Yes.
my producer and I have also been working with a couple different films to write songs for the movies, and that's been another experience that I've really enjoyed because it's just, as an artist, it's really fun creatively to look at a script and then try to write a song that captures its essence. So that's been a little bit of it as well. But everything that I've released so far has been about me.
Okay.
And my second single, I think, is kind of a good complement to Loving You Is Hard because it kind of talks about the other side of coming out of a toxic relationship.
Okay, makes sense. So the second one is Sleeping Without You.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
awesome.
Yeah, so it's kind of like two bookends of the same experience. The first song is about being in the throes of that toxic relationship and the highs and the lows. And the second one was written when I was just coming out of a very toxic relationship and just the journey that I went through and sense of self discovery. Because I think whenever you're coming out of a relationship, it's hard at first because there's this empty space where that person used to be. And I realized at a certain point that I was so much happier with that empty space there than I was in the relationship.
Yep.
And that space was an opportunity for me to grow and be the person that I wanted to be. So there was so much more space for me now. And
Exactly.
that's what I was trying to capture in that song.
I love that. It's a really great like quote from you too, and it's a really good lesson for general public because a lot of people think that if you stay in it and you stay in it, it'll get better. And most of the time, that empty space that you're talking about when you leave gets filled in with things that you absolutely love. You'll find yourself in some of those empty spaces. Like you have to assume maybe there's a glass jar and it's full of marbles or whatever, and there's just no space for all the good things that are supposed to come your way in life. And when you remove some of the bad stuff, the rot, the toxicity, the other things that are in there, and you remove them, there's space for other things to flow in. And if people look at life like that and kind of walk through life like that, I think that they will hit like very specific moments that will be very good for you. I mean, my toxic relationship story was 13 years ago when I started my business. Because I was single and had space for other things, I started a business. And now 13 years later, I own like 7 different things and we're just killing it and we're doing great. And I'm like very happy with the idea that if I was in that relationship, I would still be in that relationship to this day if I stayed there, and I wouldn't have the business stuff that I have right now. And because I left that, I was able to grow. And in your situation, it sounds like your music career is going to be one of those things that's going to be able to flow into your life from letting go of whatever that was back then, maybe immaturity, maybe relationship situations, whatever was kind of happening in this phase of life where you were writing about it and releasing these songs about it. It sounds like you're now hyper focused on music and really kind of letting yourself out there now that you've gotten validation from other people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I love that metaphor of the glass with the marbles in it because I think that really is such a great visualization of that experience. But yeah, I mean, I think my music career 100% was born out of that space that we're talking about. It all actually started like a couple months after getting out of that relationship, and I definitely would not be where I am now if I was still in that place. Like there was no space for me to be the person I am today.
Yeah, no, I love that. And that's very cool. And I'm glad from just like being an adult in this world, but also a fan of music and being in this industry and knowing a lot of things about it. I'm glad that some of these things happen to us, honestly. Like I'm glad that bad things happen because not only does it make your skin a little bit thick, it gives you some life lesson, it gives you the ability to grow, it gives you content for writing, it allows you to kind of heal. And I think people come out 10 times better when they've gone through the worst of it. Like, I mean, I think someone told me once, like, would you rather go through life never knowing what love is or always having a broken heart? And I'm like, you know what? I think I'd probably want to go through life having a broken heart because then I knew what love was and I could grow from that. At least I knew there was something on the other side, right? And that's kind of the piece of like life in general that I keep in my back of my mind. And that's someone that was in the music industry that I respected highly that asked me that question because I was in this like writer's block at one point and I couldn't figure things out. And then we were kind of talking about love, and that was a question that came up to me that kind of triggered all these other thoughts and was able to get me to the finish line with writing some lyrics out for a song that I was working on. So those are things that kind of, sit with you over time. I mean, those are really positive things. So, I mean, I love it, Anna. You're nailing a lot of the same stuff that I kind of preach to a lot of people. Just naturally just saying it to me. So I love that we've got a kindled spirit thing there, which is really cool. Yeah,
Me
I
too.
dig it. Yeah, it seems like we're on the same page, even though we're different generations. But I think music is like very universal in that way, and it brings people together. So when I read your lyrics and I see your music video and the way you presented this song that's out now, and then listening to Sleeping Without You, I'm going to listen to that one later, so I can just learn a little bit more about the person now that we've been able to communicate about music, and your perspective on life is cool.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to hear what you think. It's definitely a little bit more of a ballad,
Yeah.
but I think it is like I said, a nice compliment to Loving You Is Hard, because that's definitely, a very playful uh, take on the whole thing. But I think Sleeping
Hmm.
Without You, I really wrote like right after coming out of it, and took a little bit of a more serious approach to it. But I think that they both were very cathartic for me to
Yeah.
write. Um, and I can only hope that they are healing for the listener as well.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. And they have to listen to the lyrics to really kind of coach with it. I mean, the big thing with songwriting in general is that you want to write songs that are meaningful to the artist, but that you also want to write songs that are meaningful to a large group of people. And I think that you're hitting those marks for sure with the songs that you're releasing. And that's accredited to not only your own talent, but obviously the team you have built around yourself, which is very cool. Um, Talk to me about like future things, like what's happening in 2025. What's going to be big moves that you're making? Are you going to think about a tour? Are you performing with anybody special? Like what's happening there?
Yeah, well, 2025 should be a really exciting year. Definitely some big things coming up, some collaborations with other artists, which I'm super excited about. Um, Definitely some more performances as well. This last year, I went on tour with the band Transviolet, and I think that they're going to be touring again next year, so I might be opening for them as well. And like I kind of briefly mentioned, I can't go into a lot of specifics at this point, but there's a couple films that we're going to be working with, writing some original pieces for, that
Hmm.
hopefully you'll be hearing more about next year.
Okay.
And aside from that, just a lot of writing and releasing.
Okay. So just like you're ready for the grind, you're ready to put it in.
Yep, I'm going all in.
I love that.
I
That's
never
very
I
cool.
never thought I would be here, but since I am, I'm throwing everything I got into it.
So I'm curious about the business side of music as well. And I want to ask you this question. I ask a lot of artists this question because it's just important for people to understand kind of where things happen, right? So let's go back to your initial story. You're singing karaoke in your dad's friend's basement. He records it. He happens to be a doctor, so he takes it to like a very well-known person in the music industry by chance. They say they love you, and then from there, what happens to Anna Sky? Like, what happens from that? You went from no one knowing who you were to, are you now signed with a label? Are you independent? How big is this team that's working with you right now?
Um, I First of all, that's a great question. I'm not signed with a label. We're gonna be working independently, at least for right now. I think that music is in a really cool place in terms of business at this point, where you don't need to be signed with a big label in order to get your music out there. So I
Mm-hmm.
really want to do that as much as possible and let the music speak for myself, but speak for itself. Sorry.
Yep.
But I am also working with a really great team that's helping me, because obviously, I mean, I didn't study this, and I never planned to go into this industry. So I'm really learning as I'm going a lot of the time. But I'm blessed to be working with some individuals that are very experienced and have been working in this industry for a long time, and they've been incredible mentors and teachers to me. And I'm blessed to work with an amazing producer. We're recording in Diane Warren's studio. So I think at this point, my focus is probably always going to be on the music aspect, but growing just organically a fan base and going from there, I think, is the next critical point. Obviously, I
Yep.
could write a million songs for myself, but if no one else ever hears them, then that they're just going to be lost to time.
Yeah, that's understandable too. I probably have a long list of songs that I've written that never got heard, never got played, never did anything. There's a lot of those little therapeutic sessions where I just wrote stuff down and stuff didn't really move around too much. So that part I completely understand.
And that's beautiful too, but yeah, there's a place for all of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, staying independent is really important to you, which I can hear in your voice, which is awesome. And having some strong mentors around is really cool too, as far as that part goes. But there's still a business structure here. And from my perspective, what I've always learned from running a business is, and it's something that you just mentioned, right? You don't have all the answers. You don't know everything. And having strong people that you can trust to bring in knowledge around something only helps that particular thing grow. I own a magazine publication, a podcast, a bunch of other stuff. And now I had to reach out to people. I mean, I don't show the team, like in the music industry, the team is kind of there. There's a producer and there's a manager, writers, whatever. Like that's all part of team. But in business, I hide some of that stuff. In music, it's very public in that way. So I like the vibe of that, but it's cool that you have the know-how of like knowing that you need to get these things, but having Diane in your corner sounds like, I mean, that's a hell of a cool mentor.
Oh, I agree. I'm so incredibly grateful, and I don't take it for granted at all, because I think it's a really big industry and there's a lot of people in it, and not all of them are people that you would necessarily want to be working with. And I feel so lucky that the first like people that I'm getting to work with are just such quality, like true to the core people that I trust. And I think that trust is a really big and crucial part of it.
Yeah, I think so as well. And this has been very enlightening. I have to say, like, I always appreciate meeting very cool people in general. And then obviously when I meet musical artists, I have a soft spot for that in my world. So when people send me, hey, do you want to interview this musical artist? It's always a yes. I don't care how good or great they are. It's just that thing. But when I listened to your music today before connecting and learning a little bit about you, I have to say I very much appreciate the work that you're creating. I hope that your career is very, very successful. It sounds like 2025 is very busy for you. But yeah, in general, like I really think you have some really good stuff going on here, and just person to person, you have a really good outlook on life and what's kind of coming down the pipeline for you. And that's really unique to have.
Thank you so much.
And so even though we're different generations, I feel like the kindled thing is there, and it's very cool that we have a good outlook. And it sounds like, you're going to be well taken care of with the people that are around you, knowing that your dad is the leader of the group here. I love that for you because he's always going to have your best interest at heart. And that's extremely cool. So, I mean, thanks so much today for just kind of finding the time to chat with us and talk music. Like, it's very enlightening for me.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. I've loved getting to know you and hear a little bit of your story. And I also feel that sense of a kindred spirit, and I really appreciate you taking the time, because obviously I'm a new artist. I don't have, a whole lot of experience, but I definitely have a lot of heart, and it is very much appreciated getting to share any of my music with anybody. So thank you.
Yeah, very much so. So thanks again, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and send some of your California weather to New York, please, because it's freezing here.
All right, I'll get right on that.
Thanks so much, Anna.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to the show. Please take a minute to head over to www.savfair.com and subscribe to our publication.